let's talk about the Old Testament. It's filled with these incredible people and events and rituals that, well, they just seem to be hinting at something more, right? Like they're casting these long shadows forward in time. Today, we're going to dive into how to read those shadows. It's this fascinating concept called typology. Okay, picture this, because I bet you've been there. You're in a Bible study, things are going great, and someone confidently says, "Oh, Joseph is a total type of Christ." And everyone around the room kind of nods along, but maybe deep down you're thinking, wait, how do we know that? Is that for real, or is it just a nice idea someone had? It's a super common question, and it really gets to the heart of how we read our Bibles. And that's really the million-dollar question, isn't it? When we spot one of these amazing parallels between the Old and New Testaments, are we actually uncovering a masterpiece that God wove into history itself? Or are we just getting a little creative, seeing faces in the clouds and imposing our own patterns onto the text? Narrowing down that difference is what this is all about. So to figure that out, we've got to get our terms straight first. What in the world is a biblical type anyway? Okay, here's the deal. A type is a real historical person, event, or thing from the Old Testament. But, and this is the crucial part, it was intentionally designed by God to be a preview, a foreshadowing of something bigger and better that was coming in the New Testament. And that bigger, better reality, we call that the antitype. The best way to think about it is like this. A type is a shadow. A shadow is a real thing, right? You can see its outline, something's there, but it's fuzzy, it lacks all the color and detail and substance of the actual thing casting it. The antitype? Well, that's the real deal. It's the glorious, substantial object that the shadow was pointing to all along. Now, this all sounds pretty cool, but let's be honest, it can get messy really fast if we're not careful. So to keep us from just seeing things, we need a reliable framework. Let's put together a simple 3-point toolkit to help us do this responsibly. Here are the 3 essential checks, the 3 questions you've got to ask. First, check for real history. Are we talking about a real person or a real event? We're not looking for secret codes hidden in the text. Second, look for divine design. Is there solid evidence that God planned this connection, or is it just a random coincidence? And third, expect a greater reality. Is the New Testament fulfillment way bigger, better, and more complete? Is there a serious escalation? This toolkit right here is what helps us move from pure guesswork to solid interpretation. All right, let's put this toolkit to work. We're going to see how it helps us sort things into 3 different categories, because it turns out not every cool parallel is a formal type. So check this out. We've got types, illustrations, and allegories. A type, like the bronze serpent, passes our tests. It's historical, and it's from God's design. Then you have an illustration, like the story of Joseph. It also honors history and shows God's design, but it might not be a direct one-to-one prediction. And then you've got allegory. This is the danger zone. It completely ignores history and just runs with the interpreter's imagination. Knowing which lane you're in is absolutely crucial. Let's test our toolkit on an easy one, the bronze serpent. Was it a real historical event? Yep. Check it out in Numbers 21. Was it divinely designed to point to Jesus? Oh yeah. Jesus himself confirms it in John chapter 3. He literally says, "Just as Moses lifted up the serpent, so the Son of Man must be lifted up." And is the reality of the crucifixion infinitely greater than the shadow of a bronze snake on a pole? Without a doubt. So boom, this is a clear, confirmed type. Okay, now for the classic case, Joseph. The parallels to Jesus' life are just mind-blowing. People have counted over 130 of them. It's this powerful picture of someone who suffers unjustly, is exalted, and then saves his people. But here's the key. Does the New Testament ever come out and say, Joseph is a type of Christ? Nope. It doesn't. So while it's an incredible God-designed story that beautifully reflects Jesus, we're on safer ground calling it a powerful illustration rather than a formal type. And that brings us to that danger zone I mentioned, allegorizing. This is what happens when we basically throw the historical story out the window and start hunting for secret symbolic meanings. Like someone might say the acacia wood in the tabernacle represents Jesus' humanity and the gold overlay represents his divinity. It sounds really spiritual, right? But it's not based on the text. It's based on pure imagination. So after all this, with all these different categories and checks, what's the single most important rule we need to burn into our brains when we approach the Old Testament? This is it. This is the whole ball game right here. The absolute right way to start. Your default setting should always be to just honor the story itself. Before you go looking for anything else, just let the story be the story. What that means is we have to first understand Joseph's story as Joseph's story, a gripping tale about family drama, betrayal, incredible faithfulness under pressure, and God's mind-bending providence. See, the Old Testament isn't just the opening act for the New Testament. It has its own voice, its own power, its own theological weight. Finding these types and illustrations adds a whole new amazing layer of appreciation. It doesn't just replace the original meaning. And really, when you step back, maybe that's the whole point. What if the goal of finding all these patterns isn't about proving how smart we are as Bible readers? What if it's about something much bigger? What if it's about just standing back in total awe of a God who is such a master storyteller that he weaves one single epic story of redemption through the messy fabric of real human history? When we see it that way, well, reading the Bible becomes an act of worship,